Hey, hi everybody. It's an honor to be here this morning, and thank you, Raj, for inviting me. So this morning, I was hoping to spend a little bit of time talking about this topic that Kathleen assigned to me, about the art and science, right, of engagement in the age of the consumer. So there are a couple of definitions I want to get going first. I heard that there is someone from Disney here this morning. Is that right? Oh, great, wonderful. Nara, right? So I'll be hopefully getting your feedback on some thoughts I have about my experience at Disneyland recently. The age of the consumer. So for many of us, when we think about consumer, right, we think about the people, right? But I want to use this leading slide to talk about when we think about people here, particularly for engagement, let's think about the data. So many years ago, when it comes to data, when it comes to the kind of computers and interactions that we have, they are on the order of 100,000. This is like ancient age, before my time. And then as the rise of the cloud in the last 10 years or so, not only are we starting, when we interact with consumers, interact with just their computers anymore, individual laptops and so on, but also with mobile devices that many of us are having. As that develops, the scale of the data that we collect about consumer increases. And so when we want to be relevant in our marketing message or in our sales approach, then all of a sudden, we need to rely on a lot more data that previously many of us need to rely on our hunches. With the recent development in IoT and so on, of course, that significantly up-level the amount of data that we collect, that as marketers or as salespeople, we need to analyze in order to really can claim we are engaging well with the consumers that we are trying to touch. So as a second lead into to this topic, I want to tell you a story. And it's a story about Disney. How many of you have seen an ad that looks something similar to this? Right? Many of you have probably seen an ad that looks like that, and just like you, I got very attracted to it because, hey, who doesn't want to save money while making your kids happy? So as I was looking at this ad, I thought about my experience of the many times I've been to Disneyland, and it's almost never the case that I went to Disneyland because of an ad that looks like this. Right? Instead, a little over a year ago, my son, I have a 8-year-old son now. A year and a half ago, he was about a little bit over 6. The reason that a year and a half ago, we went to Disneyland was because my son wanted to go to one place, Disneyland. And that place is this, right? The Jedi Academy. How many of you, just a show of hand, have been to the Jedi Academy? Oh, gosh. So, of course, for my son, rather than, when we talk about school and academics, he would much rather prefer the Jedi Academy over Stanford or Harvard or MIT or places like that, right? This is about the best university in the whole world right here. So I want to tell you a story of engagement and also story of marketing and engaged consumer. So my son, he wanted to go to Jedi Academy because his children, or his friends in school tell him that, hey, there's something really, really good. I've never heard of Jedi Academy, just like many of you here, until I went there. And so he is able to tell me that, hey, Dad, I want to go to Jedi Academy because there's something I want to do. So I don't know what it is. And so when we first arrived, first thing, this is my son, by the way, Teddy, a year and a half ago. So the first thing he wanted me to buy is this hat. Does anyone know what that hat is? It's a Cars, Lightning, and what's that? Lightning McQueen. Oh my God, Raj is an expert here. So what I can tell you is all of you may be right, but for me, it is a $24.99 hat. So as a parent, right, who can resist when your child wanted you to buy something for them, particularly for a trip, right? A trip is already $1,000. What is $24.99? But what is remarkable is, how did my son realize he wants to get this hat? Does anyone know why? For the one person who raised your hand, or for the Disney person, why would a child, other than the fact that it looks beautiful and whatever, right? Why would a child want to buy a hat in the Jedi Academy? Anybody? Identifies with them? His friends have one? All of those could be true, but there is another more immediate reason. I'm sorry? He saw a car and he wants it, okay? He saw the movie, okay? All of those could be true also. I'm sorry?
Placed in the right place when he walked in.
Okay, all those could be true, but it turns out he wanted the hat before he saw the hat. So in other words, when we were on the plane, he told me, I want to go to Jedi Academy, and I want a hat that looks something like this. So it turns out it is because of the following. For those who have been in the theater for the Jedi Academy, there is one person who is very, very important that you want to impress. So here's my son trying to impress this one person. Does anyone know who that person is? It's the Jedi Master. So I would like to get feedback from, so I don't know whether Disney is the case. I suspect there is a reason why the Jedi Master exists. The Jedi Master is there, of course, to find future Padawans, right, to become Jedis. But perhaps there is a second reason. If you wear a Disney-branded hat, the likelihood you'll be selected from the audience is much higher. Perhaps, I don't know. Nara can tell me. So when all that happens, right, my son, of course, is extremely excited. He got picked because he did all the right moves. And after he got picked, he was able to, after all the excitement, all the training, all the sound, and so on, he got to do one thing that is unbelievable. He got to spend 5 seconds fighting against the ultimate evil in the universe. So many of us here have children and perhaps grandchildren. Let me ask you, who would not spend the amount of money necessary to get just 5 seconds of that? And of course, it's not just $24.99, because the rope is another $50, and this plastic thing is another God knows how much it was. So I want to, I'm sorry, I probably missed. It's priceless. There you go. It's priceless. Exactly. And it's all it is just 5 seconds. So I want to just pause for a moment, right? Other than the story itself, I want to think about what an incredible, this is a marketing moment, right? It's a marketing moment where Disney is able to create a priceless moment that takes into consideration many, many channels of interaction with the consumer. In this case, the consumer is actually me, because I'm the person who pays. But the influence came in from multiple channels, right? Word of mouth, the display ad that you saw earlier, maybe non-branded, maybe earned media, such as the various Star Wars references and movies and so on. So I have been serving Disney as a vendor in a number of roles, either at Google or Axiom, and I think currently at Salesforce. Something that I learned from your former chief marketing officer is the motto for Disney is incredible, right? The single very inspiring motto to drive Disney is this. Disney has an aim in life to be relevant with every guest, everywhere, every time. Isn't that inspiring? Like if you are running a company, to have a motto like that, that is really inspiring for your entire staff, or cast members, as Disneyland used to call it. But there's a problem with this phrase. As I interacted in my various roles with Disney, the problem with that approach, with having a motto like that, and the reality of running marketing and sales and operations, is the challenge that lies with trying to achieve, be relevant with every guest, everywhere, every time, even for a successful branding company like Disney, is that someone always owns a moment with the guest. But as the former chief marketing CMO told me, unfortunately today, even at Disney, no one owns the guest. It's one of these Zen moments. I want everyone to kind of look at this, right, and really reflect on. What does it mean? It means there's probably an incredible dozens of people team running the social media campaign. There is probably a huge CRM team. There's probably a lot of cast members in the parks interacting with the customer. And there is probably a very large online team that's trying to create that incredible Disney.com experience. And yet, are all those efforts connected? Even in a world as deeply connected with the consumer as Disney, I suspect able to have a connected, not only database about the consumer, but have all the touch points about consumers aggregated in a way that is easy to get access to is very, very difficult. And the team at Disney told me it would be wonderful whoever vendor that can be serving Disney can help Disney connect the moments. So that's really the challenge, right, for engaging with the customer here. So what does it mean to connect the moment here? So these days, when many of us have 5 or 6 or 7 devices that we come into contact every day, connect the moments, in the digital side at least, means cross-screen, right? In the way that my former company Axiom and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies are talking about marketing these days, it means people-based marketing rather than channel-centric marketing, right? Marketing is very much of a channel-centric discipline if you think about what it is really doing. And for the sales team, it means to try to do across different channels rather than just focusing on a particular slice of the journey. So that reminds me of I think it could be an Indian idiom or an adage, right? It's as if marketing these days is like blind man feeling elephants, right? And different person that you talk to, different channel marketers and different salespeople may describe the elephant a little bit differently. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the sophistication of the various channel-centric teams and the problem that everybody is missing. So first, let's talk about first part of the elephant that we're going to feel. Let's talk about, of course, the tusk first, right? The most prized part for a lot of people, the spear. So the spear is very hard. So which part are we talking about, right? When we talk about something that's hard in consumer engagement, well, it's the technology part. And in many ways, I want to posit that big data, right? Many of us here in the room subscribe that this is the world that big data is winning, right? I would like to say big data is the problem. So what I mean by it is the problem. So when in the age of the consumer, not in the age of optimizing certain channels, there are a variety of data that we are trying to collect, right? The slide that I showed you earlier. When we talk about big data, generally, right, as many of you in this room can tell me, it refers to the 3 V's, right? There is a large amount of data, petabyte scale, variety of data, the velocity they're coming in is incredible. But oftentimes, when we talk about big data as technologists, we care more about a lot of the fancy names and the fancy technology stack that we can use to process data. Because I want to use one quick slide to kind of illustrate how bad the situation is, and also how exciting the situation is. Many of us have been operating in this space for decades, right? So in this particular diagram, right, I want to be humbly submit to you as a way to summarize many of the technology development over the last 20 years. On the x-axis is the size of data. As every year we get more data, right? 20 years ago, a gigabyte of data is a lot. Now I have almost a terabyte of data on my phone. And these days, to be considered to be a data processor, right, we need to be talking about petabyte scale. Otherwise, this is where size matters when it comes to talking to your friends, right? On the vertical axis, it's about processing systems that is either real time or lag time. of course, you can process petabyte scale data as long as it is multi-day, then everybody can do it. But if I want to do it in near real time, even a lot of the MPP systems, massively parallel systems that we are talking about, have a hard time. So let's talk about the evolution here. On the lower left-hand corner, right, 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, in the 1970s, companies like Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, and a whole bunch of others, like Informex and companies like that, ruled the world, OLTP, OLAP, et cetera, right? This is a very well-mature discipline and so on. But the problem, of course, is as you are trying to use this set of technology to process either in real time, the financial services industry, right, you run into a problem because these things are not real time. And so there are a whole bunch of technology, TIPCO, and et cetera, have developed to help you get to a real-time processing. Except the more real-time you get, the less the amount of data you can process. Now, nobody can process a petabyte of data in sub-seconds. And so in the last 10 years, and I'm very fortunate to be involved with a number of these projects, right, since Google, it's all about the lower right-hand corner. Process petabyte scale data, except at batch mode, right, hours and days. So things like Hadoop and HBase and Bigtable, et cetera, it's really in that particular category. And there's a joke I want to make. Anyone from Teradata here, by the way? Okay, good. So listen to this. So there's a reason why Teradata need to hire a better marketing person. Because you never want to name your company after a size. 20 years ago, Teradata sounds like a lot of, a really big size company. Nowadays, you need to ask, can Teradata handle a petabyte of data? So maybe they should rename themselves to Exadata, whatever. Oh, actually, I think somebody named that already. So finally, more recently, many of you in the room are involved with some of these newer technologies, right? Heron, Kudu, Impala, et cetera. And this is really the frontier of a lot of the hybrid transactional databases that many of you are starting to use. The point of this is not to impress everybody with how many acronyms there are on this slide, because there are a lot more, right? The slide about this is we are talking about engaging the consumer. Remember the Disneyland story? How many marketers, how many salespeople, how many CMOs and CEOs can truly name the acronyms on this slide? And who knows how to choose all these technologies here? So the reason that this is an impediment to really engaging with the consumer is big data is really, especially how to handle it, how to process it, and the variety of technology that's available is becoming an impediment from the business people and the brands with interacting with the consumers. And that's a big problem. OK, let's talk about another blind man's story, right? So if you're a blind man and you are feeling another part of the elephant, you may think the elephant is a tree. So in the consumer engagement world, right, there is a tree-like looking thing that are generally called the funnel. And many of you have seen this particular article from The Economist, that the funnel is dead, and yet long live the consumer decision journey. So what's up with that, right? Isn't the funnel real, right? All of us heard about the funnel since, I don't know, our high school days, right, or college days. So let me show you what a funnel looks like. So many of you are familiar with the funnel with the upper part of it, right, which is you have a lot of awareness, consideration, intent, and then you eventually nurture a customer to become a converted customer. So of course, the part that many of us may not be familiar with is after a customer is converted, you want to re-engage with the customer and remarket to them. And there's a lot of values in that. And when we are going through this funnel, data is generated. And there are various disciplines of marketing and sales that have been created for millennia, right? Around brand advertising, direct response, lead gen, content management, e-commerce, support loyalty management, and so on. And every one of these, there is an ecosystem of companies and technology that try to optimize that particular slice of the funnel. And of course, when we are doing remarketing, there is another set of technologies that does retargeting and emails and so on to re-engage with the customer with upsells and so on. The problem is, if you look at this slide and think about all the companies and technologies that you have interacted with, companies that are at particular slices at the top, right? Brand advertising like Facebook's and all the ad tech companies, billboards, TV advertising companies, they are not the same as those that do lead generation, Eloqua, HubSpot, etc. They are not the same as the company that do conversions, people that do the actual transactions. It's also not the same as the companies that do the retention and reactivation, the Axiom, the Epsilons of the world. And I guess I should add Salesforce of the world. And then at the same time, there are a lot of companies that are doing emails and retargetings and so on. It is yet another set of data sets. So in order to engage with the consumers and prospects, all of a sudden, I need to, as a business person, I need to get access to more silos of data. And I need somebody to connect them for me in order to know all the touch points that I have with the customer. In the last 5-6 years, there is a breed of technologies that are out there called data management platforms, right? That grew out of cookie management, that try to unify these data sets at the top of the funnel. And as many of you know, these technologies don't really work very well as soon as you have known consumer data, right? This is the realm of the CRM companies. Why is it that every marketer and salesperson have heard about the consumer journey and the funnel for many, many years now? And we have spent trillions of dollars invested in technology in this space. And there's not yet a company that can really connect top of the funnel with bottom of the funnel consumer data today. Why? It must be because something really, really hard is about it. So that's another problem. Of course, I'll come to solutions later. Not that there's a solution, but that's a very important consideration to think of. Back to the blind man. So another group of blind men start feeling another part of the elephant, the fan. So the way I want to talk about the fan is, for a given company, companies like to think that they are optimizing the experience for their fans in various channels. So I'm going to show you some data. Oh, there, okay. So I want to take that funnel sideway, right? So sideway is from awareness to consideration to intent and decision. And oftentimes, we like to think, we have a team. So in this case, I want to illustrate using the funnel in terms of specific channel. So let's talk about the display data channel. So about 3 years ago, my former team in Google Analytics, which tracks roughly 80% of all conversion sites on the web, did a measurement. As soon as a consumer clicked on a display ad, how many sessions is that consumer away from eventually doing something interesting in the last interaction in terms of a conversion? So that number, average over billions of conversion over a 1-quarter period, is 3.1. What does that mean? On average, for conversion websites, whether it's a e-commerce website, whether it's a survey website, whether it's a loan application website, when you click on a display ad, you are roughly 3.1 sessions away from doing something that the brand wants you to do. So let me give you a reference so that you know how to interpret 3.1. So the reference here is social media. When you go to a Facebook fan page, you are roughly 1.9 sessions away from doing something that's interesting. So no wonder people say display ad or brand advertising ads is at the top of the funnel, right? This is because it is 3.1 sessions away. It's getting you being aware of what a brand is trying to get you to do. While social, when you go to a fan page, you have already shown some intent that you have known something about a brand and you are trying to engage better. Let me show you the other numbers here. Email is 1.4, right? So many of you who run email marketing campaigns or email sales lead nurture generation campaigns, no wonder email is considered lower in the funnel. So it's 1.4 sessions away from people clicking on your ad to get your 30% off sale. And then the rest of this, I'm going to just click through to get you take a look at this. I'm going to skip the last one, which I'm going to talk about. Search, it turns out, is roughly 1 sessions away. So you're 1 sessions away. When you search Disney hotel discount, you're roughly 1 session away on average from actually converting into purchasing a Disney hotel. What is interesting is that direct, which is people who type directly into disney.com/hotel discount, are actually the closest to the conversion, only half of a session away. So I want all of us to kind of reflect on how our organization manage engagement with our consumers. We have teams that specialize in social. We have teams that specialize in direct mail. Others that are specialized in email. Others are specialized in search. And they all optimize according to specific metrics for that particular channel. And they come back at the end of each quarter to say, I need more money because I am now driving really, really well according to the metrics that I'm being measured on. But who is measuring the optimization? Whether the end consumer overall, touched by all of these touch points, is getting a better engagement with the brand. It's very rare to come across companies that have metrics about the consumer and not about CTR, CTL, etc. Right? All those very channel-specific metrics. So the reason this is a problem is we are now optimizing for a fragmented consumer journey, and that's not cool. Another group of blind men trying to feel another part of the elephant, in this case, is touching the tail. And so I want to talk to you about when you generally think about a rope, right, it's because you're very desperate. And so I want to tell you the story of it is not anyone's intention not to optimize the consumer experience. It is just that it is really hard. So what do I mean by being really, really hard? Let's talk about my friend Jessica, who lives in 123 Main Street, New York. So Jessica here has received multiple interactions with a brand through in-store purchases that generate a bunch of data, name, address, email, purchase type, and so on. And she also received a lot of direct mails, also seen a lot of TV ads, get a lot of email, did a lot of search, and so on. What makes optimizing the consumer journey and collecting the data about Jessica be easy is that some of these channels are locked. How many of you have access to TV measurement data? Right? Almost, I mean, some of you may say, isn't that what Nielsen does? Well, did anyone tell you Nielsen is based on extrapolation of 20,000 households? Right? So to really understand whether some of these data sets is affecting Jessica, you're making a lot of inferences based on channels that you have absolutely no transparency on. And so this is a hard problem. But having some of these channels being hard to reach does not necessarily mean we cannot do anything about it. So let me describe to you what I mean. So I want to talk about what is needed to really connect all these channels together. So Jessica here has an offline presence in terms of an address, in terms of a mobile phone number that she gets access to when she makes purchases. She also has access to a bunch of online presence as she uses her various tablet devices and phones and watches to access interaction with the brand. And of course, there is the consumer side and then there is the business side. As you go into the business, into her office, she also has another set of devices, and those are disconnected. If there is a way, and there are increasingly companies that are helping all of us do this, for us to create a consumer database or customer database, not by specific channel data, such as cookies or email, but instead by who this person is, then that is at least the beginning of how to solve this very fragmented customer journey problem that we are talking about. So who are some of these companies? Right, if you do a quick search on the internet these days or open up your latest business news, there are companies such as LiveRamp from Axiom, Experian, and I'll talk about that actually in the next slide. So the wall that we are talking about here is the very fact that sales, marketing, and operation has for way too long been thinking about optimization from a channel-centric perspective, using metrics that have become almost textbooks taught in college. This is becoming actually a problem for us to optimize, to realize the potential of how to engage with the modern consumer. How many of you have seen this Lumascape diagram? Oh, one person. Okay. So let me give you, first of all, a sad news, and then an even sadder news. So the sad news is, let's talk about the display channel for a second. Between the marketers and the consumers, the marketers on the left and the consumer on the right, there are many technology brands and companies that are trying to help you reach the consumer, except they all offer things that are a little bit different. The agencies try to sell you all kinds of things, right? And then there are all kinds of ad exchanges and data plays and attribution companies that try to help and convince you that if you use their product, they're able to help you catch that very consumer who will convert on your website or on your in-store. That's the first sad news, is there are way too many companies and brands here. The even sadder news is this is only one channel. It turns out there are multiple channels here, and each channel has many more brands and technology platforms that we as business owners need to understand in order to know what the optimization needs to be, or what data to buy, or what execution system to use. With that very sad news, I have also a piece of good news. And for some reason, my animation didn't quite work here. So it turns out none of these things matter if we abstract them away. Really, what we are talking about is our goal in life is to connect the brands on the left with the consumers on the right so that the brands can develop unbelievable relationships with the people, the consumers that are on the right. So that's really what this whole thing is all about, regardless of which DSP, DMP, data suppliers, which channel executioners that we are using. So how do we recognize the elephant, right, as blind men, feeling different parts of the channels that we are in touch with the customers? Don't be channel-centric, and don't focus on just a slice of the funnel. What we are all trying to do is to give the right message at the right time on the right device for the consumer, right? That's really what we are here about engaging with the modern consumer is all about. So how do we do that? So I'm going to give you, for some reason, the Microsoft version of my slides. Oh, everything is a little bit off. Don't worry, I'm a Microsoft fan. So how do we get to know your consumers here? So I want to at least start a conversation with you, right, on how to look at this problem. So in order to not optimize the experience on a particular channel, you want to know who are the people that you are dealing with. In order to know who are the people you're dealing with, you're talking about data. So this is a world I have spent a little bit of my time in the last decade on. So I want to tell you about one framework to think about the consumer data landscape in order to discover what kind of people you're dealing with. There are three kinds of data. One kind of data is targeting data that many of you are familiar with. So let me orient everyone here a little bit. The x-axis here are about three kinds of data. I'm going to first start talking about targeting data. After targeting, you want to do measurement. But in order to do targeting, you need to know who are the people that you are targeting with. And the kind of targeting data that exists that you can buy and get access to or through your website include things such as demographics, lifestyles, life stages, propensities, OBA, online behavioral activities, offline behaviors, etc. And I'll put specific names of companies that provide this data in a second, but I want you to hang with me. The vertical axis here relates to whether it's offline or online. The higher up you go, the more offline it is. The lower up you go, that particular type of data tend to be more digital. The other type of data you can buy and acquire to do a better job, to know whether you have done a good job on the measurement side, are these kinds of data. Point of sales data, transaction data, channel data, viewership data, conversion data. On the recognition side, the data that you could get access to better engage the consumer include name and address, phone, household email, cookies, etc. So that's quite a variety. So who are the data vendors or partners you can work with to get access to these data to know who you're dealing with? So here's my particular take. It's only a slice of some of the consumers and some of the data suppliers in this space. So as you are thinking about how to deal with different consumers and different channels of data, here is a slew of companies that you may want to consider if you're not already dealing with them, so that you can get the right type of data to understand who you're dealing with and whether or not you are doing a good job on the measurement side. As a show of hand, how many of you are buying data or partnering with firms here to do a better job interacting with your customers? So great, a few of you. Wonderful, wonderful. With that, let's go back to look at the Economist article. The Economist said the funnel is dead. True, the linear funnel is dead. All of us no longer interact in the classical sense with a brand, that we are aware of something and that we eventually convert, and that's it. Now, in the age of the modern consumer, it is really about consumers making decisions along the way, and how could the brand be engaged with them with the optimal interaction points to send the right message at the right time on the right device at the right place. And with that, I'm going to take a quick pause, and I want to thank you for your time.
I think we have a couple minutes for maybe one or two questions.
Yeah.
We are very better connectivity. Quick question. So you focused a lot on the consumer part of the business here. In a B2B space, you're looking at a customer.
Yeah.
And in the customer space, as you know, in B2B space, since you're at Salesforce now, it's a lot of the buying decisions are not necessarily by an individual. Some of them are by influence, some of them are by committee, and some of them are multiple touch points. The irrelevant buyer journey that you just highlighted. So how do you tie the B2B space customer with what you've been talking about from a consumer perspective?
Yeah, the B2B world, as you rightly pointed out, is extremely different than direct-to-consumer world. Because, for example, when we think, just as a lead-in, let's think about the CPG space. Right? Many of us think that CPGs deal with consumers. No, they don't. Their customers are the channels, right, or the retailers, etc. So the type of data, there are, of course, many differences. Let me focus on the data. The type of data that a company in the B2B world needs to deal with is very different, right? So in this case, they don't care about one-to-one interaction with the end consumer. They care about getting data about the channels. They care about, they don't necessarily care about creating a end customer database. They care much more about things such as what type of products sell better at what season as a bulk. For example, with diapers, when it bundle with milk bottles, would it sell better than just diaper itself? And that's not necessarily a type of data that the end consumer care about, but the channels care a lot about. So first, I guess, to be succinct with answering you, it is a very different world when you go to the B2B versus B2C. The type of data and the perspective that you have on what is relevant to you need to be reconfigured. And there's probably a separate talk that we could go into to actually address a lot of that. I'm not sure if I completely satisfactorily answered your question, but I'm acknowledging that this talk is not a B2B talk.
We'll connect offline.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you for the question.
All right.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day here.
All right. Thank you so much.